So, Blessed Edenton, good day, students. I hope that you are doing fine today. So, let's continue to learn about our lessons in campus journalism. So, last week we've tackled about the introduction, the um, campus papers organization. So this week for our lessons 3 and 4, we will discuss the Charter of Student Press Rights, the Code of Ethics, okay? So the Code of Ethics and the aim of students' principles and journalism. So let's start. So what do we mean by the Charter of Students Press Right? Okay, so what do you mean by the Charter of Students' Press Right? So these are a free and vigorous press in essential feature of a democratic society, and whereas the student press has the duty and right to fill this role, and it aims of the students press cannot be achieved unless its independence, okay, from all forms of external interference or maybe censorship is maintained inviolate. So the ninth International Student Conference hereby declares the following conditions essential for a free students press. So first bullet, the student press in accordance with the right of the United Nations Draft Convention of Information free should be free from regulations by any organ from the government or by the university authorities. So it should be that the student press should be free from any regulations. So next bullet, the student press except where it is an official organ of a student organization should be free from regulations by other student organization. So this is talks about free regulation, but it differs or it points out or emphasizes to the student organization. So that's it. Students organization. Next bullet. So the student press should be free from all pressures, financial and other external groups. So you know what, class? The Ninth International Student Conference also recognizing that the student press bears great responsibilities to students by virtue of its power to influence student opinion. So let's um, proceed for the last Charter of Student Press. The student press should have a free access to information and the same rights and privileges as afforded to regularly accredited journalists. So as you observe in the Charter of Students Press, you always observe that there are free, okay? There are words talks about free because this is further declares that it should be mindful, okay, mindful of those responsibilities and continually strive to keep above partisan considerations and should endeavor at all times to act in conformity with all the principles of cooperation. So that's it. It should be free because as today we all know that the press are fighting for freedom. The press should not be oppressed, okay? It's because the press really or has the power to say that this is the happenings inside the government. This is the happenings that the normal people didn't see in their naked eyes. Okay, so this would really be a big help for the charter of the students' press. Okay, so let's proceed to the Code of Student Press Ethics. So what we mean by ethics? We know that the Code of Student Press is because there is a regulation. So what do we mean by ethics? So scholar Scholastic journalism best serves learners and the school community when students produce free and responsible news media by balancing rights and responsibilities. It should be um, we don't need to say that if you are a reporter, if you are a press, you have the power to make a decision from your own self only. It's because it should be balanced, the right and your responsibilities, applying ethical prudence and advancing the best interests of young citizens and the school mission. So the focus of student journalists must always be aimed beyond their self-interest toward doing what is best for society. Their motivation should be driven by service rather than ego gratification. So class, it is always the cliche for us that we say if you are an officer of an organization in the school, sometimes people do say that you are popular or you are powerful to say that you control something that you have this activity or you join this activity. That's it. But what do we mean by the code of student press ethics? It should be balanced. Okay? It should be balanced because of this word ethics. You know what is right or wrong. Okay? You know what is right or wrong, good and bad. So it is important that it should be driven by the service rather than ego gratification or your desires. Okay, so what are my ethics? So the term ethics class comes from the Greek word ethos, which means character. An ethical person is a person of good character who strives to make right choices. Those right choices are self-determined by each individual. So ultimately, ethics is voluntary conduct that is self-enforced. It means it is your self-desire. It is an act of voluntarism for yourself that this should be right. Okay, so your responsibilities in your rights should be balance, should be equilibrium. There is no such thing that if you are an officer, you are much higher than an ordinary student. That's not. This is really important for the code of student press ethics because when you are an officer, it is not only the skill, it weighs the attitude of the officer rather than the skill that they have. Okay, so although ethics is related to law, it differs from law in that law is socially determined and socially enforced. Law it tells us what we can do, ethics what we should do. Okay, so the difference between law and ethics, when we see law, this tells us what we can do or what should we need to oblige. Okay, but what do we mean by ethics? It what we should do to our own self. What we should do to our own self. It is a self-driven of what should we do for the right decision. So what is legal may not be what is ethical. So having the right to say something doesn't make it right to say. Ethical choices often are not easy. So dilemmas occur when two right moral obligations conflict. So for example, suppose a yearbook staff member lies to the editor about why she needs an extension on important deadline. So the editor comes to you, the staff member's friend, seeking confirmation of the excuse that was given. So two moral virtues collide, loyalty to a friend and commitment to truth. It is time to weigh your values. So what do you prefer? It is loyalty to a friend or a commitment to truth? Because it is such a good or a positive way of a phrase When we say loyalty to a friend, it should be you need to be loyal because you're the friend. When we say commitment to truth, it should be it is positive. So let's focus only on the situation. When the staff member lies to the editor about why she needs an extension, an important deadline. Imagine if you are an officer, don't rely if you have a friend that is that has a higher position than you. For example, you are just a vice president and your best friend is president, then you have this deadline. Then um, you are such having a confidence that you don't need to comply your requirement on on the day that is the deadline. Okay, so it refers to the two moral virtues collide. If you are loyalty to your friend, or if you are loyal to your friend rather, you such would make your requirement before the deadline. And you are um if you're really passionate to your commitment, it is weighing your values than your responsibilities. Okay, so that's the code of student press ethics. I just explain to all of you what would really mean that student press ethics. So, the student journalist should strive continuously to be unbiased and accurate in his or her reports and should equip himself adequately with facts to support his or her published statements. He or she should realize his or her personal responsibility for everything he or she submits for publication. As a press, through yung katotohanan talaga is very important. It should be unbiased and it should be accurate. Don't add statement that is not really included in your article. That's it. So the student journalist should reveal his or her identity as representative of the student press before obtaining any interview for publication. Sometimes people who has an advocacy to oppress government, they are anonymous, but in campus journalism, don't really burn fire in your own house because this is your school. Okay, you should reveal your identity as a representative of the student press. Don't be such an alien person. It's either negative or it's either positive. It should be. Okay? So next, the editor should not exclude a student point of view solely because it is contrary to the editorial policy. Okay? Should not exclude a student point of view. That's really important, okay? Should not exclude a student point of view. That's why here in Denton Echo, we have the voice of people which they voice out their comments and feedbacks about the school performance, and it's good, okay? Because this is the right to say, okay, that the irregularities of the school should really focus of the students complaints. Okay, the editor should apologize in print at first available opportunity for all mistakes. As always, as an officer of a campus journalism in your school, you should be all accountable of all your mistakes, and the editor in chief should um, should lead. Okay, so a student journalist should defend freedom through the own collections and publication of news and facts, and through the rights of fair comment and criticism. So this talks about unbiased again. So it should be fair comment and criticism. Okay, so next, a student journalist should respect all confidence regarding sources of information and private documents. He or she should not falsify information or documents or distort or misrepresent the facts. If you are such a an officer of the school, do not falsify information that is really happening inside the school premises, because one, it should be once the newspaper or magazine publish, it is not only the school or the students in the school who have seen it. Outside the school, the ched, so it's a really big difference if you falsify information or documents or distort or misrepresent the facts, and the way that the person thinks that, okay, so this is the school right now, this is they have this kind of they have this kind of issue. So if you're a press, or if you are a true press, do not falsify information. Even you make an article, even you make a job as a writer from your enemy, you should be unbiased, because it is your job and it's you're passionate about. Student journalists should be familiar with the laws of libel and contempt of court which exist in the country, and should observe the international copyright agreement unless this is interferes with the freedom of the press or the need to inform the public on vital matters. So every effort should be made to retain the independence of all students from public relations, censorship, pressure, or undue influence from any outside body. So political, governmental, religious, or in the university or colleges, official publications of a student union, however, have a particular responsibility to that union. It should be this this is need to inform the public on vital matters. Okay? Uh Vital matters. Um this is really obvious that the official publication of the student union, okay, they combined, however they have a particular responsibility to that union. They have that particular job to do, to have or to complete the word publication. Okay, so that's it. So if you have any questions about the Code of Student Press Ethics in the Charter of Students Press, you can, direct message me through my Facebook Messenger, so we can at least interact with each other, because it is really hard for this online learning, because if you don't have, or if you have any clarifications in our discussion, hindi siya agad-agaran masasagot. Okay? It's because I am just recording my discussion and you are just listening to what I've said. Okay, so let's proceed to the declaration of principles, aims of student journalists. So the International Student Press Conference, the objectivity in journalism, okay, the objectivity in journalism, it aims to help the audience make up their own mind about a story. It provides the fact alone and then letting audiences interpret those in their own. The main objectivity in journalism, journalists should present the facts whether or not they like or agree with those facts. Okay, so let's proceed. The journalism plays one of the most essential roles in the life of man, the expression of thinking. Why did they say so that aims of student journalists one of the most essential? You know that class journalism always serve the public in many important ways. They can do They can only do so if its practitioners have mastered an increasingly complex body of knowledge and specialized skills. That's why we have the expression of thinking, because above all, the responsibility uh, for a journalist must involve an informed ethical commitment to the public. So this commitment must include an understanding of in-depth appreciation for the role that journalism plays in the information, enhancement and perpetuation of an informed society. So that's it. So we are pledged to work together, or you are pledged to work together to strengthen journalism education and to increase its value to students, employers, and the public. In doing this way, we are guided by the following principles. So that's it. We have the Declaration of Principles to aim of the student's journalist. So next, the student journalism as a means of expressing thought tends to strengthen unity, understanding, and friendship among all the students of the world. It should be all journalism should unite because it is one mission or one goal of any press that they need to inform or entertain the public. That's the job of student journalists. So next, that through a mandate of the press conference, it is the duty of the student press to take a position on current problems based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and on the Charter of the Students Press. You've already know the Charter of the Student Press. So if you are an officer or a press or a journalist, it is mandate of the press conference that is your duty to take a position on current problems. Okay? So next, that in order to define the responsibility of student press in a code of ethics, it is necessary first of all to establish the duties and obligation of the student journalist and make a declaration of principles containing the aims and objectives to be implemented by the student press. So it resolves to declare as fundamental principles to be implemented by the student journalist. So the following: number one, we have culture. So student journalism must be a means of propagating culture in all its forms. So that's emphasizing racism. In the heart of journalism, education is a balance of conceptual. So if you are educated enough, you have the means of propagating culture in all its forms. Okay? So next, freedom of the press. It is necessary in order to ensure the very existence of journalism that full freedom of the press exists in the country in which student publications are issued, because the freedom of the press exactly reflects the liberty of opinion and expression in any democratic country. So journalism is a field appropriate for colleges or universities. So we have this journalism education as an academic that field in its own right with a distinctive body of knowledge and theory. So freedom of the press. It should not be oppressed. Okay? It should not be oppressed. Next, freedom of culture. As the exchange of ideas and opinions is an effective means of obtaining understanding between all students of the world, it is indispensable for such understanding that all men have full freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Okay, so when we say freedom, it talks about independence or liberty, or you have the open responsibilities for everyone. That talks about culture and other freedom of thought, religion, and conscience. Next, totalitarianism, colonialism, and imperialism. Student journalists should pursue and condemn totalitarianism, colonialism, and imperialism in all their forms, as they are systems opposed to the highest aspiration of students around the world. Okay, so it's focus about that kind of ism. Next is student dignity. Student journalism, recognizing its responsibility as a medium of expression and orientation, declares that it will try to be effective in favor of student and human rights in accordance with various resolutions of the International Student Press Conference, which says that all people should have access to an education, enabling them to realize their full potentials and available equally to all without regard for color, economic circumstances, sex, political or religious convictions, and social standing. That all people should be free to develop their educational systems in keeping with their own culture and traditions. So that all means by student dignity. Okay, so that would really mean about, or that is all about the declaration of principles and aims of students journalists. So all journalism educators should maintain strong links to media industries. They should critically reflect on industry's practices and offer advice to master a variety of journalism work. Okay, so that's it. So now let's proceed to writing good journalistic style. Okay, so next, so this is our last discussion. So writing good journalistic style. So first, cut unnecessary fat, preserve meaning but prune ruthlessly. Okay, what do we mean by this? If you are a writer, please avoid lengthy articles. Please avoid lengthy articles. It's because sometimes you are not creating a novel, but you are creating a story that is accurate. Okay? So please cut unnecessary fat. Don't put flowering words, especially in news. Okay? So preserve meaning. If that's what your point, so that's it. It's precise. Okay, it's short but concise. That's it. Use simple, clear language. Bring meaning into focus with concrete examples and vivid writing. So, so this is really the problem as an English major. It's because if we are an English major, we have different knowledge or different register or jargons about the words that we create. So as a writer, we should avoid this because not all readers are English majors or not all readers are broad thinkers about the words you've used. So please avoid high frequencies words that are not really meant for your articles. Please use simple and clear language. That's it. Okay? So number 3, say what you mean. So that's really literal. Say what you mean. What your point, what you want to say what you mean. Okay? Number 4, choose active over passive voice. So let's have a grammar discussion today. So replace to be verbs with action verbs. Choose active or passive voice. When we are writing, so this focus on news writing, I think. Okay? So when we say choose active over passive voice, even we cover a news that happens yesterday, if this will publish today, okay, for example, September 8 happens the Panagayayam Festival of Edenton Mission College Incorporated, but you created an article um, after the event, okay, after the 1 week event, when you say that, oh, I will create this as a passive voice or a past tense because this happens in the past. No, news should be present. It is, or it should be active over passive voice. Replace to be verbs with action verbs. This is really important. When you watch CNN news, this is really manifested to be. Okay. So next, Number five, craft transitions carefully. The most commonly used transitions are chronological. Now, since, then, a few days later, etc. So that's it. Number six, replace cliches and adjectives with nouns and actions verbs, focusing on actor and action. Cliche, okay, so please, if you are a writer that is consistent this year, next year, another year, please change cliche word that you've used in your article so that the reader would not likely said or comment that, oh, this article is so dull, it's very boring, it's very cliche. Okay, so please replace if you have this article. Okay, number seven, translate jargon by paraphrasing dull and worthy quotes. Okay, so please, that's it. Number eight, use quotes correctly. Okay, so if you are inciting a quotes for for your feature article or editorial, please have or copy correctly. Okay, so that's it. So and that's it. We've discussed Charter of Student Press Ethics, the uh, the Code of Students Press. Okay, so the journalism student principle and writing good journalistic style. So I will um, just send the link to you for our next assessment for this week for because this is 3 to 4. Then I want you to um, at least read these 14 traits of good writers. I uploaded the module, okay, the PDF module of this campus journalism and packet study. So please read until here, okay, because for our next lesson we will proceed to the elements of news and news writing. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for listening. If you have question, please direct message me through my Facebook Messenger. So keep safe. Fourth year BS Ed, I am your teacher, Jo Marie Romero Mercado. God bless and blessed Edenton.